All right, so this video is going to be the second part of this day. We're breaking this section up into multiple days, and we're going to now go over frequency polygons. And you're going to see they're very similar to what we did in histograms. Same thing as before. The first thing that you have to do is create your frequency distribution, so that this way we have our table, and it's easy for us to then decide which graph we want to use. All right, so now we're going to do, once again, the frequency polygon. And you're going to see it's very similar to what we did with the histogram. All right, so the same thing that we started off with the last one is how we're going to start off with this one, is creating an X and a Y axis. So let me move this down a little bit so we don't see the date. Let me just erase this. All right, so it's creating an X and a Y axis. So we'll create here, here's our Y axis, and then we're going to create here our X axis. Now I need to leave a little bit more space here than I did last time because there's some work that we're going to have to do. All right, and we're labeling this the exact same way that we did before. Whoops, sorry, that's not X. It's our Y axis up here, and here's our X axis. This is going to once again be our frequency. And this down here is going to be something different. But one of the things I didn't label last time, what you need to make sure is when you're labeling this, you're not going to label it underneath as class boundaries. I was just writing that so you knew what you're putting there, but you're going to label whatever it is that we're studying in this point. So this was the temperature, the highest temperature for each day. So that's what we need to label. All right, so what we're going to do this time when we're labeling our x-axis is going to be slightly different. All right, what we need to do is we need to take the midpoint of our class limit or our class boundary. So what we do with that is we add our two numbers together, so 100 plus 104, and we divide it by 2, and that is equal to 102. All right, the book tells you to add your class boundaries together, so 99.5 plus 104.5, and we divide it by 2. But that's still going to give you 102 as your answer, and regardless if you use your class limit or your class boundaries, when you're taking your midpoint, it's going to be the same. But if you recall, one of the rules that we said that we should be trying to do, but it's not mandatory, is we want to have an odd class size. And the reason is this odd class size will give us a midpoint that's easier to work with. Because if we had an even class size here, we would start having decimals that we're going to have to plot. And it just makes it a little bit more, not challenging, but tedious. So that's why we want to have the odd class size. So we're going to go ahead and do this midpoint for all these numbers, for all these class limits, and then we're going to plot them. All right, so these are all of our midpoints and all the values that we're going to then use for our x-axis. Now, just in case you guys forget, I'm going to write what the midpoint formula is down here. And the midpoint formula is your two values, so your x, one of your x values plus your second x value, and you divide it by 2. All right, and that's how you find your midpoint. But all of these numbers now we're going to have to go ahead and plot on our x-axis, so let's do that now. All right, so we plotted all of our midpoints, 102, 107, 112, etc. And I put the little degree symbol because we are dealing with temperature. All right, our frequency is the same thing as before, where we need to make sure that we stay uniform. So we can't just put 1, 2, 7, 8, etc. So we're going to do the same thing as before, where I'm going to go ahead and label my y-axis by 2s. All right, so I went ahead and labeled my y-axis by 2s. Now, for the difference, so you notice this is the same as we did for a histogram. This is different because now we're taking the midpoint for each of these instead of taking the class boundary and using it. So that's different. But now we're just going to plot the points. So our 102 was representing this data here for this class, and it had a frequency of 2. So we're going to plot this point here at 102 and 2. This 107 is representing the next table over here, the next row, and it had a frequency of 8. So we're going to plot this point at 8. All right, then we're going to go ahead and plot the rest of our points. All right, now after you plot these points, what's very important is you need to go ahead and draw line segments connecting all of these. So we will connect all of our points with using straight lines. So you guys should be using a ruler. I don't have access to a ruler right now, using this drawing pad. So we're going to go ahead and connect all of our points. All right, let me just go ahead and highlight these points a little bit more so you can see exactly where they're at. But there's one more thing that we have to do. So right now it's not very hard. It's pretty simple. The last thing you have to make sure that you do is you need to go ahead and connect these last points back to our x-axis. Now these points, these lines that we're going to draw back to the x-axis, they're supposed to be the same distance as our class sizes are here. So this one will be somewhere out. Whoops. This one will be somewhere out here. so it would represent the same distance as the other graphs. And this one would be a little bit further out, but because I don't have that much space to draw for here, I didn't have enough space in between here, so I'm just going to draw this point here, and that's supposed to be the same distance from these 2 points as these 2 points are. All right, remember, our points are supposed to be uniform distance apart. I'm limited in the size that I have here, but as long as if you guys have them after and being connected to the x-axis, I'll be fine with that. Just try your best to keep the same length. So that's it. That's drawing our frequency polygon. You'll see it's very similar to our histogram in the sense that we're using our frequency as our height. The difference here is now we're going to have these straight line segments that we're connecting to each of our points, and the points are now being drawn at the midpoint of all of our class boundaries or class limits, unlike our histogram, which was using our class boundaries as our beginning and ends of our bars. So I don't think drawing these 2 graphs are that difficult, but it's a way for you to visualize this data to your reader. All right, that is it for this video.